We saw fewer attacks during winter, but now, right before the elections, the pressure is increasing again. And weeks ago, Lukashenko announced plans to bring at least 1,500,000 people from Pakistan. We cannot exclude that these migrants can be used again in migrant attacks against Poland.
Dzień dobry, witam Państwa w kolejnym odcinku naszego programu Świat według Polski, w którym staramy się pokazać najważniejsze wydarzenia na świecie z perspektywy Polski i Polaków. Dzisiaj Państwa i moim specjalnym gościem jest Swiatłana Cichanouska, liderka białoruskiej opozycji. Mrs. Cichanouska, thank you very much for finding time for this interview.
Thank you for your attention to Belarus, to Belarusian democratic forces, and to our fight for democracy.
Mrs. Cichanouska, do you think that the Lukashenko regime could influence on the Polish presidential election about the migrants on the Polish-Belarusian border, about some hybrid warfare with Putin, or maybe he's too weak, to influence on our internal politics?
I think that dictators like Lukashenko and Putin, of course, they always try to weaponize elections in democratic countries. And their goal is simple: to divide, to destabilize, and to poison societies with propaganda and lies. They want to see Poland weak and torn apart by conflicts, because strong and united Poland supports Ukraine, helps Belarusian democracy, and stands in the way against tyranny. This is why they hate Poland's success. But I believe in the strength of Polish democracy and in the resilience of Polish society. The people of Poland have always stood firm against threats, and I'm sure that they will not let dictators from Moscow or Minsk to dictate their future. They can interfere in different ways through disinformation, through fake news, different cyber attacks, and maybe even organizing pressure on their borders with the migrants. Also, they can use proxy organizations, for example, to create divisions and fear. And it's all part of the hybrid war. It's designed to weaken Poland and undermine its role as a reliable friend of Belarus, Ukraine, and all those who fight for freedom. And here, of course, using this opportunity, I want to thank the government and people of Poland that, despite all the threats, continue to stand with Belarusians from the very first days of our struggle. Your support has been real, not just on words. You were giving refuge to those fleeing repressions. You were speaking up for our political prisoners and holding Lukashenko's regime to account. And believe me, Belarusians will never forget Polish solidarity and support. And I'm glad that Belarusian issue unites all parties and all political groups in Poland.
From one hand, Polish state border army in last weeks thought about the rising incidents, including migrants, including Belarusian Secret Service, intelligence, army, and so on, about the attacks on the Polish-Belarusian border. From the other hand, Alexander Lukashenko and his regime informed about taking the new people from the Arabic Middle East countries. What do you know about the current situation with migrants at the Polish-Belarusian border? Do you afraid that the Lukashenko regime and Putin will use people from for example, Arabic country to destroy the stable situation in the eastern flank of NATO?
For sure, Lukashenko's regime is deliberately weaponizing migrants in hybrid war against Poland and actually the entire European Union. We know that since 2021, thousands of people from Asia and Africa have been brought to Belarus, then forced toward the borders of Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. And this is not spontaneous migration. It's a carefully planned operation. We saw fewer attacks during winter, but now, right before the elections, the pressure is increasing again. And weeks ago, Lukashenko announced plans to bring at least 1,500,000 people from Pakistan. We cannot exclude that these migrants can be used again in migrant attacks against Poland. And Lukashenko's security forces, including intelligence services, are involved directly into these migrant attacks. They escort migrants to the borders. They coordinate and provoke violent clashes, even attacks on Polish border guards. And migrants are handed crowbars or wire cutters, like axes, and some are forced to attack with no way back. And as democratic forces, we have gathered hard evidence of the regime's involvement. We know the names of those responsible. Many of them are closely tied with Lukashenko himself. And this information is being shared with the Polish authorities and Brussels, of course, to impose targeted sanctions on those who are responsible for this. We are also working to hold the regime accountable for these crimes. These are clear violations of international law. So let's call things by their names. Lukashenko is criminal and he must face justice.
As you know, many observers, residents in Poland and eastern flank NATO countries, afraid of the upcoming military drills in Belarus, including Russia, other ally states of Kremlin. What do you know about these drills? Because as we know, after the Zapad 21, Putin started the full-scale invasion on Ukraine. That this upcoming drills, military drills on Belarus, will be something very important if you talk about this aggressive policy that, I don't know, how many soldiers from Russia can be located on the Belarus or maybe very close to the Polish border too?
First of all, I have to say that Lukashenko and Putin are conducting Zapad 2025 exercises not to defend, but to send a message of force and intimidation, both to neighbors and to our own people, Belarusians. As you said, we all remember what happened in 2022. They called it, it just drills, and then used our land to launch the invasion on Ukraine. And this time, Russia can use these drills as the pretext to increase its military presence in Belarus. And we are, of course, very concerned that even after the drills, Russian troops might stay in Belarus, which will tie our country to Russia even more. And Putin is also using these military drills to threaten NATO's eastern flank, keeping Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia under constant pressure and showing the world that he can destabilize the region whenever he wants. And for Lukashenko, it's a way to prove its loyalty to Kremlin and to remind Belarusians who really control the country. And of course, these possible drills only increase the risk of our country being dragged into foreign aggression. This is why I call on all democratic allies, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, European Union, and all the NATO countries to stay alert about these possible drills and keep standing with us, Belarusian democratic forces, because we are fighting for free and democratic Belarus, and only free and democratic Belarus can bring a real security and peace to our region.
In your opinion, Belarus plays some role in Trump peace, so-called peace negotiation. What is your opinion about this direct talk between the Trump and Putin, sometimes overhead of Ukraine? Last days we hear about the possible of the recognized de jure Crimea as a Russian territory. What is your opinion about this maybe possible, threat for Belarus and also Belarus' role in this negotiation, or maybe some kind of direct talk between US and Russia, also which is very dangerous for the whole European security system?
So first of all, we believe that Belarus must not be a bargaining chip in any peace talks. Peace cannot mean appeasement. It cannot mean sacrificing Belarus to Russia in some deal. You know, for too long, Belarus has been seen as a buffer state or a pawn in geopolitical games, but we are not Russians' backyard. We are a European nation, and our people showed this to the world in 2020 when they stood up against Lukashenko dictatorship. I truly believe that no one more than Ukraine or Belarus want this peace. And of course, we are grateful to Europe that you are standing on the good side of the history, trying to help Ukrainians and Belarusians. But of course, transatlantic alliance is extremely important, and we cannot make any deals with Russia behind, the back of Ukraine and Belarus. And Belarusian issue should be on the table while discussing peace with Ukraine. And of course, we have to give Ukrainians everything they need to win this war, because the war in Ukraine is not just Ukrainian war. It's not just about geopolitical crisis. It's a battle for Europe's future. When Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine from Belarusian territory 22, I felt the pain and shame. Pain for the Ukrainians under attack, and the shame because my country, Belarus, was used as a launch pad for this aggression. So victory of Ukraine, it will be victory of democratic world. But again, let's not leave Belarus for future, for one day later, because stable peace and security in our region can be only in the case when Belarus and Ukraine and Moldova actually will be part of this new security architecture.
Of course, I need to ask about the political prison in Belarus, including what is especially hard for you personally, about your husband, Serhiy Tsikhanouski, also about Ales Białacki, Andrzej Poczobut, Maria Kolesnikova. What about these prisons? Is it possible that, for example, Trump administration can influence on the Lukashenko regime to release some prisoners? What is the condition of these prisoners? You have some contact with your husband, with other prisoners?
So I will remind you that at least 1,200 political prisoners are behind bars in Belarusian prisons. And the conditions for political prisoners are inhuman and just cruel. And many, like my husband, Serhiy Tikhanovsky, are kept incommunicado, completely isolated from their families and lawyers. For example, I haven't heard from my husband for more than 2 years, no information at all. There are no visits, no calls, and even no news whether they are alive. And for sure, this is psychological torture. Some people like Andrzej Poczobut or Maria Kolesnikova, they are denied proper medical care. They forced to work in prison factories or placed in punishment cells for the smallest violations. They are isolated, they humiliated, and pressured to sign confessions or beg for mercy. And even after the release, many face constant surveillance, blacklist, and other threats. And of course, Andrzej Poczobut is our common hero and his personal enemy of Lukashenko. And I know how much the Polish government is doing to get him released, and of course other political prisoners. But Lukashenko is afraid of Andrzej and holds him hostage. We know very little about his conditions, but Andrzej is extremely strong person and he's unbreakable. But we have to understand why regime is doing this, because they fear people. The regime keeps the strongest, brightest, and the most respected Belarusians behind bars to intimidate the rest of the society. It is like a message. If we can break them, we can break anyone. And of course, our political prisoners are the real heroes of Belarus, and we continue fight for their release every single day. We are working with the European Union, United Nations, and the United States, looking for possible venues to release them. And I don't think that the regime will release people voluntarily. That's why we need more pressure. The regime must know that it will pay price for every repression, for every prisoner, and for every day of stolen lives. The regime is not only jailing opponents, it attacks various groups in the society who are not loyal to him, especially Polish minority, and it's again revenge on Poland for your strong and principled stance.
What do you know about the Angelika Melnikowa case? As you know, a few weeks ago, the former, as I understand, the activists of the democratic opposition of Belarus were disappeared. Do you know about where she is? We also hear some information that maybe she was connected with the Lukashenko regime, and maybe she was someone who trying to maybe spy the democratic opposition in Poland and other countries. What do you think about? What do you know about her case?
In this world of disinformation, I really don't want to speculate on the topic of disappearance of Angelika Melnikowa. I know that Polish special services are dealing with her disappearance, and there are so many versions are circulating in the media, but really we don't have to interfere now into this investigation because we don't know all the details. But I want to say that all the people, all the activists, all those who are against the regime, even in exile, even in living in free world at the moment, they are targets of this regime. And people who fight fearlessly against dictatorship, against Lukashenko's regime, they have to take care of themselves. They have to understand whom they are talking to. They have to be very cautious about different communication. But again, I want to believe that Angelika is, alive, because everything can happen. We don't know how long the regime's hands are, and thanks to Polish operations, Polish investigation, we will know the truth hopefully soon.
Also, I want to ask about the whole opposition of the Belarus. That are you ready to take a power in the moment of the shifting of government in Belarus, in Minsk? What is the most possible scenario from your perspective? Because in Poland and other countries, we're very afraid that the Kremlin, for example, after of disappearing or maybe ending of the presidency, or not presidency, but ending of the government of Lukashenko, that Kremlin were trying to put their person, their leader, to continue this pro-Russian path. So, what's about the democratic preparation of the changing of power in Belarus, and what's about the supporting of the democratic opposition in Belarus? Because, as I understand, the Belarusian society was brutally beaten by the Lukashenko regime about the democratic and prosperity dream.
I'm absolutely sure that change in Belarus is a matter of time. And, sometimes in the moments of desperation, in the moments of fatigue, because, this fight is already 5 years, too long time, I always recall Solidarność and, your fight for years and years, and you succeeded. So I'm sure that we will succeed as well, because regime is weakened. It has lost public support. It is isolated internationally, and it lives in fear of its own people. Belarusian regime is like a chair on 3 legs: repression, money, and Russia. If one leg falls, the chair, all this construction will collapse. And of course, we want to see a peaceful transition, as in Poland, without war, without violence. And it could be possible by internal pressure from the Belarusian people and external pressure through sanctions, international isolation, and support of democratic forces. Of course, we don't know exactly how and when changes will come, but we must be prepared for them. We must be prepared for a new window of opportunity when it opens. It can be connected to Ukraine, especially in the case there will be a ceasefire. The attention to Belarus will return again. But also it can be connected to the internal situation or economic situation. The regime is much less stable than it seems. And I do believe that changes in Belarus are more possible than changes in Russia. In contrast to Russia, Belarusian society is pro-European, pro-democratic, is united and consolidated. We have built alternative structures of power working in exile. So we will be ready to take responsibility for the future of the country when the moment comes. And you asked about, some person who can be put instead of Lukashenko. So there can be only two venues. If Belarusian democratic forces will take power or somebody pro-Russian. But we have to understand that Belarusian society are against Russian influence, and they will not accept this pro-regime or pro-Russian figure in Belarus. So it will be constant destabilization in Belarus. So Belarusians will not agree with this, and there will be uprisings, against this person. Also, I don't see any mistrust to Belarusian democratic forces, people in Belarus who also, oppose this regime, maybe undergroundly, yes, but they are preparing for this moment, and they believe in democratic forces. They see that we are fighting for our future. We are fighting for release of political prisoners, for independence of Belarus, but also for our future. We are drafting reforms. We are building coalitions with the European Union. We are working with experts, civil society workers, and even security officials who are ready for change. So it's constant cooperation between people on the ground and those who are in exile. And we are fighting for Belarus that is free, independent, and pro-European.
I want to ask our interview about a question about the Polish and Belarusian society relationship. From the other hand, you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that about the strong support for Polish government from Polish society at all. But from the other hand, Polish government, police intelligence report about the rising case of the Belarusian who was arrested in the case of the working from the, for example, Russian sabotage or Russian intelligence. Also, as you know, in Poland, we observe rising of the anti-Ukrainian motives, also using in the election campaign. What can you say about the Polish-Belarusian relationship, that you feel that the Polish society, like ordinary citizens, still support the democratic of Belarus, democratic opposition, and care about our eastern neighbor who wants to go to the European path?
I have to say that Poland is the country that accepted hundreds of thousands of Belarusian people. And since 2020, I hardly heard about any cases of ill treatment of Belarusian people. I think that Belarusian or that Polish ordinary people, they understand our situation. They're in full solidarity with us, and they also understand that Belarusians are not just enjoying, Poland, enjoying free world, but they are fighting for democratic Belarus, and democratic Belarus will be a reliable partner for Poland. So it's not only our fight, but your fight as well. And of course, Russian and Belarusian propaganda, they can send such messages that Belarusians or some Ukrainian people try to destabilize the situation in Poland, but we know how this propaganda is working. And I think that there are no anti-Belarusian or anti-Ukrainian thoughts in Polish society, because you you were going through, the same difficulties. You know that freedom is gained through difficulties, through pain, through tears, through difficult fight, and you stand on our side. So we don't have to be poisoned by this information that this person is spy, that happened. It might be so, I don't know. We live in a world of disinformation, but what I know is that Belarusians are really grateful to Poland for your hospitality, for that your country is changing even laws to give more comfortable life to Belarusian people. So, like in its mass, Polish people are very, positive about Belarusians.
Thank you very much for this interview. Państwa i moim gościem była liderka białoruskiej opozycji, pani Swiatłana Cichanouska. Thank you for the finding time, Mr. President. I hope maybe in very near future, Mrs. Cichanouska. Thank you for the finding time.
Thank you.